Republicans claim they support mail-in voting. I'm here to tell you, don't believe them. Welcome back to Democracy Docket. I'm Mark Elias.
And I'm Paige Moskowitz. Let's get started. The RNC is spending a lot of time and money encouraging people to vote early and by mail, but they're also in court suing to block that exact thing. So, Mark, explain to us what's going on.
Yeah, so I want to correct one thing you said. They are spending a lot of money in court. I'm not so sure they're spending a lot of money promoting vote by mail. I think that they are sending a lot of press releases promoting vote by mail. I think they're creating a lot of propaganda videos saying that they support vote by mail. But I think that when you actually look at where they are dedicating their resources, as you say, they are dedicating their resources to send their high-paid lawyers into courtrooms all around this country to attack virtually every aspect of mail-in voting. Now, why are they doing this? I think that they are doing this for two reasons. Number one, I think that they are under some pressure among elites in their party, namely their donor class and some of their political operative class, to promote vote by mail. Why? Because vote by mail makes sense. Like as a campaign tactic, it makes sense. As a democracy tactic, it makes sense. As a way to engage voters and ensure that everyone can vote, it makes sense. And in a close election, allowing early voting and vote by mail can be the difference for a campaign winning and losing. But here's their obstacle. Their obstacle is that Donald Trump has been lying to voters and lying to his supporters now for 4 years about voting by mail. He has been telling them it is not safe. He has been telling them it is a gateway to fraud, and he has been telling them that voting by mail means their ballot may not count. So having lied to their voters for this long, they are in this in-between place where they would like to correct it and certainly want to make the elites in their party feel like they're doing what they can do. But they also know that if there is in fact access to voting by mail, if in fact mail-in ballots are counted, if in fact there is less disenfranchisement with voting by mail, that they will be on the losing end of that math, right? Because Democrats have become very accustomed to and very comfortable with early voting and voting by mail. So that is why they are sending their lawyers into court.
And when we say that they're sending their lawyers into court to block mail-in ballots voting by mail, what exactly are Republicans challenging? What part of the voting process are they trying to limit or stop?
I mean, Paige, what part of the process are they not trying to limit or stop, right? I mean, it might be a shorter conversation to say what aspect of voting by mail Republicans are like, this is great, let's do it, right? They're not, right? They are attacking drop boxes, right? I mean, if ever there was something that a party that thought it wanted voting by mail would support, it would be secure containers for people to deposit their completed ballots and have them promptly delivered to election offices. You know, drop boxes are really structurally no different than the blue mailboxes you see outside of post offices or in some in some street corners. The only difference is that those ballots, rather than get handled through the postal service, they get picked up directly by election officials. But they are attacking drop boxes. They are trying to say that ballots that are postmarked or otherwise in the system, the mail system by election day, shouldn't be counted if they are not received until the day after the election. That is fundamentally an attack on vote by mail. They are in Pennsylvania playing all kinds of games with trying to prevent people who return their mail-in ballot but don't put the year next to the date or put the wrong day in the date or leave the date blank. Like they are trying to disqualify those ballots. We know in Pennsylvania that they have successfully said that if the ballot isn't in a secrecy envelope, even though it's in another envelope that provides secrecy, the ballot should be tossed out. So they are looking to reject mail-in ballots for every possible reason. And that's before you get to the places where they want voters who vote by mail to have to submit a copy of their ID. I mean, Paige, how the hell are you supposed to do that? Right? And what does that do other than complicate the voting process? It doesn't make voting any more secure. It doesn't make it prevent fraud. It simply makes it harder to vote by mail. Paige, I could go on and on about how they are trying to shorten the periods to obtain mail-in ballots, make it the mail-in ballots have to go in earlier, require wedding signatures. I mean, you know, on and on. Everything they can do to make it harder to vote by mail, they are doing, because their goal is to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat in 2024. And there is no aspect which they target more than vote by mail.
So it's clear Republicans are lying about their support of mail-in voting. But that's not the only thing they're lying about this cycle. A very strange lie they're telling is that they're inflating the number of lawsuits that they have gotten involved in.
Yeah, it is a very odd situation with what the Republican Party is doing, because on the one hand, they are in fact litigating an unprecedentedly large number of voter suppression cases. So, like, kudos to Mike Watley and the RNC. You guys are definitely the most aggressive vote suppressors there are, and you are filing more litigation to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat. So I rarely say something nice about the RNC, but here it is. You guys are champion vote suppressors. You definitely want to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat. So that is all true. But on the other hand, they're not sufficient. They're not satisfied with the title of champion vote suppressor. They want to be an even bigger force in voter suppression than they are by saying that they have filed more lawsuits than they have. So, like, I have to believe that this is part of an effort to simply please the boss. You know, they got rid of Ronna McDaniel. They brought in a new team at the RNC to bring more voter suppression litigation. And that team wants to not just actually do it, but they want to please the boss. And one of the ways they please the boss is by inflating publicly the number of anti-voting lawsuits they're involved in. Democracy Docket tracks all of their litigation, tracks all of the lawsuits that they are involved in, all of the lawsuits that state Republican parties are involved in. Obviously, Democracy Docket also tracks all of the pro-voting litigation brought by Democrats and progressive organizations and voting rights organizations. So I hope everyone subscribes to Democracy Docket. The link is below. It is the best source I can give you if you want to know what the Republicans are up to, if you want to know what the good guys are up to. It is your one-stop shop. But I can't tell you, other than pleasing Donald Trump, why they would be doing what they're doing.
And Mark, why does it feel like so many people and so many groups still take what the Republican National Committee, what Republicans in general are saying at face value? Why do people believe these lies that they're telling, that they support by mail, that they have filed, over 80 lawsuits this cycle? They have no credibility. Why are people still believing them?
Paige, I'm not sure why so many in the media take the Republican National Committee's press releases at face value. It's actually bizarre to me, since the media knows that Donald Trump is a serial liar and he knows that he controls the RNC. But here's just like one example. So first we had the Republican National Committee announcing bank your vote. So here is, I'm going to put on the screen, bank your vote. Okay. The Republican National Committee said they were committed to making sure that people voted early by mail. Then the Republican Party said they're doing away with bank their vote. Bank the vote is now gone. Okay. And instead they had grow the vote. Right? They were going to now grow the vote. They were no longer going to bank the vote. So the votes were no longer being banked. They were presumably being planted someplace and they were growing. You don't hear much about grow the vote anymore. That was a few months ago. Now they have announced swamp your vote. That's right. Here it is, everyone. Look on the screen. It is swamp the vote. Now, what's interesting about swamp the vote relative to grow the vote or bank the vote is that it's kind of an amalgamation, right? Bank the vote, clearly related to early voting and voting by mail. Grow the vote, who the hell knows what it is? I guess it was just like, we need more votes. Swamp the vote, so though they have rolled it out as a platform to bank your vote, it's actually also about swamping the vote on election day. So who the hell knows what it is? But my point is, when you take all of these together, it's just a series of efforts by the RNC to put up lame looking websites that like don't really do anything. I mean, it's not like, Trump rally supporters are actually going to these websites. It's not like the RNC is putting any real money behind this, right? These are just press releases. So why is it that this gets sort of just reported at face value? I have no idea. I wish the media would stop just reporting on these websites as if they're real programs.
So Republicans are claiming they want as many people, well, let's be clear, not as many people, as many of their voters to cast a ballot as possible. But they filed over 20 anti-voting lawsuits so far this year. Many of these lawsuits directly relate to some of these initiatives that they claim to support, like mail-in voting, like early voting. Do you expect a lot more lawsuits to be filed before Election Day?
I do. And before we get to that though, Paige, let's just pause for a second at how remarkable it is that here we sit in 2024 and you and I can say with little fanfare that the Republican National Committee and its allies have filed 20 anti-voting lawsuits in an election year. I mean, it's June. So in the first 6 months of the year, they have gone to court, in some of these cases issued press releases, but in all instances very proudly, very publicly, and said, hey, Your Honor, let's make it harder to vote. Like, that is, by historical standards, an absolutely amazing thing. And the fact that we now take it for granted that, well, yeah, of course, that's what the RNC does. I mean, why wouldn't they try to suppress voting rights, is just a astounding setback for American democracy. We thought that after the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s and the expansion of voting through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then the early part of this century, that we were beyond the point of a political party purposely and proudly engaging in voter suppression. But no, that's where we are. And so, Paige, of course we're going to see more of this, right? We're going to see more of it because this is what the Republican Party thinks it needs to do to win. And we are in an age in which the Republican Party can do anything or say anything with absolutely no shame, and frankly, with relatively little penalty among the mainstream media. There is nothing Donald Trump can say at this point that is too outrageous. There is nothing the Republican Party can do right now that is too unacceptable for them to essentially get a free pass. Donald Trump can say he wants retribution. Republicans can say we want to suppress the vote, and it is now just taken as sort of a legitimate campaign tactic. So, I created Democracy Docket in 2020 to shine a light on what I thought was a activity that Republicans and anti-voting organizations were engaging in the shadows. What's remarkable is that now Democracy Docket has 15 people, covers this full time, has not just YouTube and others and social media, but has a website and has both a daily newsletter, a weekly newsletter, and as well as premium content. The links for all of that are in the show notes below. But it does all of this, and the Republican Party is out in the open, right? It's no longer the Page Democracy Docket no longer has to find the RNC hiding in the shadows. They are now basking in the spotlight of a press corps that makes it very clear that this is what they're going to do to try to win the election. So I hope everyone subscribes to Democracy Docket. And thank you for watching Democracy Docket. You can find all of the links in the show notes below, and we will see you next time.